What if you awoke not in your comfortable bed, but in the frozen hell of a Viking thrall quarter, your body aching from the raid that tore you from your Irish homeland and thrust you into a world where survival depends on invisible submission to masters who see you as nothing more than breathing livestock? In this immersive journey through surviving Viking Age Iceland, you'll experience 30 brutal days as a captured slave, learning that every breath is earned through pain, every meal stolen through cunning. Picture your bare feet bleeding through rags as you haul frozen water at dawn, the stench of fear in quarters where 20 souls share straw that reeks of desperation. Yet this isn't just suffering, it's your education in power. Through serving duties, you'll observe freed farmers counting silver, wealthy merchants commanding respect, battle-scarred warriors earning status, and mighty chieftains reshaping territories with casual words. From stealing scraps to survive, until witnessing Thorvald's skull splitter's absolute authority, you'll climb every rung of the social ladder through brutal education. You'll learn to forge metal in scorching heat, master Norse words that mean life or death, and discover that even in slavery, hope can be carved into driftwood. The spring raid announcement could transform everything, as warrior status beckons to those brave enough to risk death for freedom. Close your eyes now, let your comfortable life fade away, and prepare to discover what you're truly capable of when everything familiar is stripped away, except the burning will to climb from the very bottom of a world where freedom isn't given, it's taken. First month of bondage. The iron collar bites into your neck like winter wind, its weight a constant reminder that your body no longer belongs to you. Dawn breaks grey and merciless over the longhouse where you sleep, pressed against 20 other bodies on straw that reeks of fear and unwashed flesh. The wooden floor beneath you creaks with the settling cold, each sound marking another moment of captivity stretching endlessly ahead. Your hands shake as you rise at the overseer's barked command, the Norse words still foreign, but their meaning crystal clear through the leather whip that follows hesitation. The other thralls move with practiced silence, their movements efficient and invisible, ghosts learning to haunt their own lives. You stumble through the motions, watching, learning the dance of survival. The morning meal consists of thin gruel ladled from a pot that never seems clean, the wooden bowl rough against your palms. You eat quickly, hungrily, understanding already that food comes at the master's pleasure and disappears at his whim. The barley tastes of ash and desperation, but your stomach welcomes any fuel for the brutal work ahead. Your first task involves hauling water from the well to the great hall, the wooden buckets heavy enough to strain shoulders already aching from yesterday's labor. The path between buildings becomes treacherous with ice, each step a careful calculation against falling and spilling precious water that would earn swift punishment. Your breath forms clouds in the bitter air, visible proof of life, persisting despite circumstances designed to crush it. The well rope burns your palms raw as you haul bucket after bucket from depths that seem to mirror your own descent into bondage. Other thralls work nearby, their faces masks of concentration that hide whatever thoughts keep them moving through this endless repetition of servitude. You begin to understand that survival means becoming invisible while remaining useful. The overseer's eyes follow your movements with predatory interest, searching for any sign of defiance or weakness that might justify the violence he carries like a favored tool. His weathered face speaks of years spent breaking human spirits, each scar a lesson taught to someone who learned too slowly. You keep your gaze down, your movements steady, offering nothing that might trigger his attention. Your back aches by midday, muscles unaccustomed to this constant labor protesting with sharp pains that shoot down your spine. The other thralls show no sympathy, their own survival consuming all available energy. You learn quickly that weakness attracts punishment, while strength draws suspicion, leaving only the narrow path of competent invisibility. The midday meal brings more gruel, this time with scraps of salted meat that taste like salvation despite their tough texture. You eat in silence, listening to the conversations of free men beyond the thrall quarters. Their laughter, a bitter reminder of the world that exists just beyond your reach. The Norse words flow past your understanding like water through cupped hands. Evening brings blessed exhaustion that makes the straw pallet feel almost comfortable against your battered body. The other thralls settle into sleep with practiced efficiency, their breathing soon matching the rhythm of wind through gaps in the wooden walls. You stare at the ceiling beams, counting knots in the wood, while your mind struggles to process this new reality. The darkness offers no comfort, only the sounds of suffering muffled by necessity, and the constant awareness that tomorrow will bring more of the same. Your fingers trace the rough wood of the wall beside your sleeping space, feeling splinters that mirror the sharp edges of your new existence. Sleep comes fitfully, filled with dreams of freedom that feel more distant than the stars visible through cracks in the roof. Winter's grip tightens. The blizzard arrives like the wrath of forgotten gods, transforming the world into a howling void where survival depends on staying close to walls and counting steps between buildings. You learn to read the wind's voice, understanding when it carries the promise of death for anyone caught in the open. The snow falls in sheets so thick that the longhouse disappears from view just 20 paces away. Your work continues despite nature's assault, the daily tasks of thrall life, adapting to winter's demands but never stopping. Water hauling becomes an expedition requiring careful planning and rope guides stretched between buildings, the buckets freezing solid within minutes of leaving the well. You develop techniques for breaking ice that forms faster than you can work, your hands growing numb despite the wool mittens salvaged from cast-offs. The great hall's fire becomes the center of existence, its warmth rationed like precious grain during famines. You feed the flames with split logs while avoiding the sparks that jump like angry spirits, each ember capable of setting fire to your rough-woven tunic. The smoke burns your eyes, but provides blessed warmth that makes the constant ache in your bones temporarily bearable. Food becomes scarcer as winter deepens, the morning gruel thinner and the evening portions smaller. You learn to eat slowly, making each spoonful last while your stomach clenches with hunger that has become a constant companion. The other thralls grow lean and desperate, their eyes sharp with the calculation of creatures surviving on the edge of starvation. Your body adapts to the cold with changes that surprise you, muscles developing new efficiency while skin grows thick as leather where it faces constant exposure. The work calluses on your hands spread and deepen, creating armor against the rough tools and frozen rope that would otherwise tear flesh from bone. Pain becomes background noise, present but no longer demanding attention. The hierarchy among thralls reveals itself through winter's harsh democracy of suffering. The strong protect access to warm sleeping spots near others' body heat, while the weak huddle at the edges where cold seeps through wooden walls like patient death. You find your place in this careful balance, neither strong enough to claim privilege nor weak enough to invite predation. The overseer grows more violent as winter progresses, his own discomfort expressing itself through increased brutality toward those under his control. His whip falls more frequently, often for imagined infractions or simple proximity when his mood turns dark. You learn to read his expressions like weather signs, adjusting your presence to avoid storms of violence. The language lessons continue through necessity, Norse words embedding themselves in your memory through repetition and consequence. Commands become familiar first, followed by numbers and names for tools that must be fetched without hesitation. Each new word represents survival, another step toward understanding the world that holds you captive. Your sleeping space becomes a territory defended through careful positioning and quiet negotiation with neighboring thralls. The shared body heat makes the difference between rest and shivering wakefulness that leaves you useless for the next day's labor. You learn to sleep lightly, aware of shifting positions that might compromise warmth or invite theft of your few possessions. The nights grow longer as winter deepens, darkness stretching from mid-afternoon until nearly dawn. The Great Hall's activities become your evening entertainment, observed from the shadows while you tend fires or clean floors. The free men's conversations reveal glimpses of the larger world, politics and trade and war existing beyond the immediate reality of survival through service. Hope becomes a dangerous luxury that you ration more carefully than food, allowing yourself brief moments of dreaming about freedom while maintaining the practical focus needed for immediate survival. The other thralls who whisper about escape during long nights often disappear by morning, their fate a lesson written in empty sleeping spaces and unspoken warnings. Blood and ice. The axe slips in your frozen grip during morning wood splitting, its blade finding flesh instead of log, with a sound that cuts through winter silence like breaking glass. Blood flows hot against the bitter air, steaming as it hits the snow while pain explodes up your arm in waves that make your vision blur. The overseer's shout carries anger rather than concern, his priority focused on the work delay rather than your injury. Your left hand bears the wound, a gash across your palm that reveals white bone beneath torn skin and muscle. The bleeding seems impossible to stop, each heartbeat pumping more crimson life onto the ground that drinks it greedily. You press the wound against your tunic, the rough cloth immediately soaking through with blood that feels too precious to waste on frozen earth. The old thrall named Eric moves to your side with practiced efficiency, his weathered hands gentle despite their scarred surface. He speaks in hushed Norse mixed with what might be your native tongue, his voice carrying authority earned through years of survival in this place. His touch brings competence rather than comfort, skills learned through necessity and repeated application to similar wounds. The Great Hall's kitchen provides boiling water and clean cloth under Eric's quiet direction, the cook allowing access through some arrangement beyond your understanding. The hot water burns as it cleans the wound, washing away dirt and wood chips that could poison the flesh if left embedded. Eric works with surgical precision, his movements economical and sure, despite the kitchen's dim lighting. The needle feels like fire as it pierces skin already screaming with pain, each stitch a new agony that makes your teeth clench hard enough to crack. Eric's hands remain steady while you struggle not to cry out, understanding that weakness displayed in the Great Hall invites attention from those who find entertainment in others' suffering. The thread pulls flesh together with tugs that feel like tearing despite their healing purpose. Your hand swells immediately after the stitching, fingers growing thick and clumsy while infection begins its battle against Eric's careful cleaning. The throbbing matches your heartbeat, a constant reminder of vulnerability that makes simple tasks monumentally difficult. You learn to work with your right hand while protecting the left, adaptation becoming survival once again. Eric shares knowledge through whispered instruction, his voice barely audible above the kitchen's normal activity. He speaks of herbs that fight infection and techniques for keeping wounds clean despite the filthy conditions of thrall quarters. His lessons come wrapped in warnings about which injuries to hide and which require immediate attention before they kill through blood poisoning or fever. The other thralls observe your treatment with expressions that reveal their own memories of injury and recovery. Some show sympathy through small gestures, sharing extra food or offering easier sleeping positions that protect your wounded hand. Others watch with calculation, measuring whether injury makes you burden or opportunity in the complex mathematics of thrall survival. Your work continues despite the handicap, tasks adjusted but not eliminated, while your hand heals with agonizing slowness. Wood splitting becomes one-handed work that takes twice as long. Water hauling requires different grips that strain new muscles. The overseer's patience grows thin with your reduced efficiency, his whip falling more frequently to encourage better performance despite obvious limitations. The wound teaches lessons beyond simple caution with sharp tools, revealing the networks of survival that exist beneath the surface of thrall life. Eric's knowledge represents years of accumulated wisdom about healing and endurance, information shared only with those who prove worthy through their response to crisis. Trust becomes currency more valuable than food or warmth. Fever comes 3 days after the injury, burning through your body with heat that makes the winter cold feel like relief. Your vision wavers between sharp clarity and dreamy confusion, while infection battles the healing flesh. Eric tends you with patient competence, forcing bitter tea down your throat, while other thralls maintain your share of daily work to prevent overseer attention. Recovery brings new understanding of your place in this harsh hierarchy, having passed some test of endurance and acceptance that opens doors previously invisible. The scar across your palm becomes a mark of belonging, proof of survival that earns quiet respect from those who understand its significance. Your hand heals stronger, but forever changed, like your understanding of what it means to endure. The language of chains. The Norse words flow around you like water through stone, their meaning critical to survival, yet frustratingly beyond reach when exhaustion clouds your thinking. Eric teaches you essential commands during stolen moments between tasks, his whispered lessons carrying the weight of life and death. Each new word represents another tool for avoiding the overseer's wrath, another step toward understanding the world that holds you captive. You learn numbers first, the counting system that governs work assignments and food distribution. 1 through 10 become familiar through repetition, their sounds forming patterns in your memory while your tongue struggles with unfamiliar pronunciation. The overseer's satisfaction when you respond correctly to numerical commands brings small relief from his usual hostility. The word for water becomes sacred knowledge when carrying becomes your primary task, its syllables carved into memory through countless trips to the well. Understanding the difference between hot and cold water commands saves you from scolding when kitchen duties demand precise temperature control. Language becomes survival, each word a shield against misunderstanding that could trigger violence. Tool names follow next, the vocabulary of implements that fill your days with labor. Axe, hammer, rope, bucket. These words must come instantly when shouted across the yard or whispered in urgent instruction. Hesitation while reaching for the wrong tool invites punishment that teaches through pain rather than patience. The kitchen thralls speak a mixture of languages, their conversations revealing the diversity of places torn apart by Viking raids. You catch fragments of Saxon, Irish, and what might be Frankish, each tongue representing another homeland destroyed and rebuilt in service to Norse masters. The babble of languages creates communication networks invisible to those who speak only Norse. Curse words come naturally through exposure to the overseer's vocabulary, their meanings clear through context and facial expressions that accompany their use. Understanding profanity proves useful for reading mood and predicting violence, the emotional temperature of dangerous men revealed through their choice of insults. Knowledge becomes protection even when the words themselves carry venom. Religious terms present particular danger, your Christian vocabulary requiring careful concealment while learning the names of Norse gods who demand public acknowledgement. You memorize prayers to Thor and Odin while maintaining silent devotion to the Christ whose name could bring death if spoken aloud. Faith becomes another language requiring translation between public performance and private truth. The rhythms of Norse speech gradually become familiar, their patterns matching the physical rhythms of work that structure each day. Commands arrive with predictable cadence during routine tasks, their familiarity allowing you to anticipate instructions before they fully form. Language and labor merge into survival instinct. Trade vocabulary emerges through observation of merchant activities, the specialized terms for goods and prices, revealing economic relationships that govern the settlement's prosperity. Understanding these words opens windows into the larger world beyond immediate survival, glimpses of commerce and wealth that exist beyond the thrall quarters. Body parts and injury descriptions become essential knowledge after your hand wound, the medical vocabulary needed for describing pain and requesting help during future emergencies. Eric's instruction includes anatomical terms that could save your life when precise communication about injury becomes critical for proper treatment. Time measurements take shape through seasonal references and daily cycles, the Norse words for morning, noon, and evening marking the boundaries of work periods. Understanding temporal language allows better anticipation of task transitions and rest periods, small advantages in managing energy throughout exhausting days. Your pronunciation improves through necessity rather than choice, misspoken words bringing correction that ranges from gentle repetition to sharp blows depending on the speaker's patience. The language forces itself into your mouth through repetition and consequence, each syllable earned through survival rather than study. Hunger's lessons. Your stomach becomes a constant advisor, its empty ache teaching lessons about priorities that no master could devise with greater efficiency. The morning gruel tastes like salvation when it arrives, each spoonful treasured despite thin consistency that leaves you hungry within hours. Hunger transforms food from pleasure into pure necessity, stripping away any concern beyond basic nutrition. The kitchen scraps become objects of careful study, your eyes learning to identify which pieces might be safely consumed, despite their questionable origins. Bread crusts hardened beyond normal palatability still offer calories when soaked in whatever liquid you can find. Meat scraps too small for free men's notice provide protein that keeps your muscles functional through demanding labor. Eric shows you which wild plants growing near the settlement offer nutrition during desperate times. His whispered instruction delivered while gathering firewood provides cover for foraging lessons. Certain roots, when properly prepared, can supplement inadequate rations without poisoning yourself through ignorance. Knowledge becomes calories when official food sources prove insufficient. The rats in the storage areas represent mobile protein that requires careful hunting and preparation to avoid disease while maximizing nutritional value. Their capture demands patience and skill, qualities developed through desperation rather than choice. You learn to set snares using salvaged cord, checking them during tasks that bring you near storage buildings. Bone marrow becomes precious resource when cooking fires offer opportunity to crack open discarded bones from the Great Hall's feasts. The rich fat provides energy that sustains heavy labor more effectively than thin gruel, though obtaining and preparing bones requires careful timing to avoid detection. Survival teaches you to value every part of any animal. Your body adapts to irregular feeding, learning to function on minimal fuel while storing whatever excess might become available. The physical changes include muscle loss that reduces your strength, but also decreases caloric requirements for basic survival. Adaptation becomes involuntary response to circumstances beyond your control. Trading relationships develop among thralls who discover different food sources, their networks enabling sharing that increases survival chances for all participants. Your knowledge of rat snaring might exchange for someone else's ability to identify edible fungi. Cooperation emerges from mutual desperation rather than altruism. The rhythm of feast and famine follows the settlement's fortunes, abundant scraps appearing after successful raids, while lean periods reflect harder times for masters whose mood translates directly into thrall feeding schedules. Understanding these cycles helps predict when conservation becomes more critical than consumption. Your theft skills develop through necessity rather than criminal inclination, learning to acquire food without detection while maintaining the appearance of honest compliance with feeding restrictions. The techniques involve timing, misdirection, and careful observation of patterns that govern kitchen security. Survival sometimes requires moral flexibility. Water becomes equally precious during periods when dehydration threatens your ability to work effectively. Understanding which sources provide safe drinking water prevents illness that could eliminate your capacity for the labor that keeps you alive. Clean water represents life extension rather than simple thirst relief. The hierarchy of hunger reveals itself through observation of who eats first, how much, and what quality of food reaches different levels of the social structure. Thralls eat last and least, their nutrition dependent entirely on surplus that remains after everyone else's needs are satisfied. Understanding your place in this system helps manage expectations. Food preparation skills learned through observation become survival tools when opportunity presents ingredients that require processing to become safely edible. Knowing how to render fat, prepare organs, or extract nutrition from otherwise inedible materials can mean the difference between calories and starvation when resources become scarce. Iron and fire. The forge becomes your teacher in lessons of heat and metal, its roaring flames demanding respect while offering knowledge that could transform your understanding of tools and weapons. Your first approach to the fire brings immediate education about safe distances, the radiant heat powerful enough to singe exposed skin from several feet away. The smith tolerates your presence only because additional hands help with the endless demand for iron implements. Bellows work becomes your primary responsibility, the leather apparatus requiring steady rhythm to maintain proper heat for metalworking. Your arms burn with effort as you pump air into the coals, the temperature rising until iron glows like captured sunlight. The timing must be perfect. Too little air leaving metal cold, while too much wastes precious fuel that controls productivity. Your first attempt at hammerwork results in spectacular failure, the hot iron flying from poorly aimed blows, while sparks shower your arms with tiny burns that teach precision through pain. The smith's correction comes through demonstration rather than words, his experienced hands showing proper grip and striking angles that direct force efficiently into shaped metal. Coal dust fills your lungs with each breath near the forge, the black particles coating your throat, while the heat dries mucous membranes until breathing becomes conscious effort. The work environment demands physical adaptation, your body learning to function in conditions that would incapacitate someone unaccustomed to metalworking's demands. Tool maintenance becomes practical education in metallurgy, your hands learning to recognize proper hardness in cutting edges and appropriate flexibility in structural components. The difference between iron and steel reveals itself through working properties rather than appearance, knowledge gained through handling hundreds of implements that require repair or modification. The rhythm of heating, shaping, and cooling creates a hypnotic work pattern that helps time pass, while your muscles develop the specific strength needed for effective hammer use. Each blow must carry intention, the force directed precisely to achieve desired deformation without wasting energy or damaging the workpiece. Efficiency becomes survival when productivity determines your value. Burn treatment becomes essential knowledge, as hot metal and flying sparks regularly mark your skin with painful lessons in caution. The smith shows you which salves reduce infection risk and promote healing, his expertise extending beyond metalwork into the medical knowledge needed to maintain productivity despite regular injury. The social dynamics of forge work reveal themselves through observation of interactions between the smith and various customers who bring repair work or commission new items. Free men speak differently to craftsmen than to thralls, their respect for skill creating temporary elevation in status that demonstrates how competence can modify social hierarchy. Your understanding of weapons grows through proximity to their creation and repair, the process revealing construction techniques that could prove valuable if circumstances ever demanded self-defense knowledge. Sword making involves complex metallurgy that transforms raw iron into flexible steel, capable of holding sharp edges while resisting breakage under combat stress. Heat management becomes intuitive through constant exposure to temperature variations that determine success or failure in metalworking projects. Reading fire color, understanding coal types, and maintaining consistent heat all require experience that accumulates through months of daily exposure. Knowledge becomes instinctive through repetition and consequence. The value of metal goods becomes apparent through economic relationships visible around the forge, the prices commanded by quality ironwork, revealing why smiths enjoy higher status than many other craftsmen. Good tools increase productivity across all activities, their manufacture representing investment in efficiency that pays dividends through improved work capacity. Your hands develop the calluses and scars that mark someone familiar with metalworking, the physical evidence creating subtle changes in how others perceive your capabilities. Forge experience suggests knowledge that might prove valuable in situations requiring tool repair or weapon maintenance, skills that could provide leverage in future negotiations or survival scenarios. The failed escape. The Saxon thrall named Aelred whispers his escape plan during the darkest hour before dawn, his voice barely audible above the wind that howls through gaps in the wooden walls. His scheme involves stealing a fishing boat from the harbor, while the guards focus on ale rather than security, rowing to the mainland under cover of darkness. The plan sounds desperate enough to work, which makes it dangerous enough to kill everyone who knows about it. You listen with growing dread as Aelred describes his route through the settlement, the timing needed to avoid patrols, and the supplies he's gathered for the journey across waters that kill even experienced sailors. His confidence rings hollow against your understanding of the distances involved and the brutal punishment that awaits anyone caught attempting escape. Freedom calls like a siren song, but death sings the harmony. 3 other thralls join the conspiracy during whispered conversations in the latrine pit, their faces showing the same desperate hope that blinds men to impossible odds. Each volunteer adds complexity to a plan that already requires perfect timing and unprecedented luck. You recognize the madness but understand the desperation that drives rational people towards suicide disguised as hope. The escape begins well, Aelred leading the group through shadows with surprising skill while avoiding guards whose attention wanders toward dice games and stolen drink. The harbor appears empty except for fishing boats that rock gently in the pre-dawn calm, their masts pointing toward stars that might guide desperate men to freedom or death. Everything proceeds according to plan, which guarantees disaster. The boat launch alerts the harbor dogs, their howling waking guards who respond with practiced efficiency born from previous escape attempts. Torches bloom like deadly flowers in the darkness, while shouts echo across water that suddenly seems impossibly wide. The escapees row frantically toward open sea, while pursuit boats emerge from hidden moorings with terrifying speed. Your decision to remain behind saves your life, but condemns your soul as you watch from the thrall quarters while the hunt unfolds in the harbor below. The escapees fight desperately with stolen weapons against overwhelming numbers, their blood darkening water that reflects torch flames like liquid fire. Aelred's screams carry across the settlement as they drag him ashore with ropes that bind more than his body. The punishment begins at sunrise, with all thralls forced to witness the consequences of attempted freedom. Aelred hangs from the whipping post, his back open to bone, while the overseer explains the mathematics of escape through measured application of pain. Each stroke teaches lessons about the futility of hope, the whip's rhythm marking time until death provides the only possible release. The other escapees face varied torments designed to demonstrate creative approaches to teaching submission through suffering. One loses fingers to the smith's hammer, each bone breaking with sounds that echo long after the blow. Another receives brands that mark him permanently as an escape risk, the heated iron searing flesh, while the smell of burning meat fills the morning air. Your survival depends on maintaining perfect composure while witnessing horrors designed to break spirit rather than merely punish transgression. The demonstration serves multiple purposes, teaching thralls about consequences while entertaining masters who find amusement in human suffering. You learn to watch without flinching, to show neither sympathy for the punished nor satisfaction in your own safety. The failed escape eliminates your most dangerous dreamers, while reinforcing the reality of your situation through graphic demonstration. Freedom exists only in death. The harbor dogs train to howl whenever boats launch without permission. The settlement's security reveals its sophistication through responses that suggest extensive experience with similar attempts. Aelred dies after 3 days of systematic torture, his body displayed as permanent reminder of escape's futility, while crows pick at flesh that once dreamed of freedom. The other escapees survive their punishments, but carry visible marks that identify them as dangerous dreamers, requiring constant surveillance. The lesson penetrates deeper than physical punishment, teaching you that hope itself represents dangerous luxury when survival depends on accepting limitations that can't be changed through courage or cleverness. The harbor remains visible from the thrall quarters, its waters mocking anyone foolish enough to mistake proximity for possibility. Glimpses of prosperity. Loading grain at the harbor brings your first close observation of the freed farmer named Gunnar, his weathered hands counting silver coins with casual competence that speaks of economic independence impossible for thralls to imagine. His boat rides low with barley that represents months of back-breaking labor transformed into negotiable wealth. The transaction proceeds without the deference you've learned to show masters, suggesting dignity earned through ownership rather than granted through mercy. Gunnar's clothes mark him as someone who works with his hands but owns the fruits of his labor, the wool and leather showing quality impossible for thralls, while avoiding the luxury that might attract unwanted attention from powerful men seeking targets for legal theft. His appearance balances prosperity with prudence, wealth displayed subtly enough to command respect without triggering predation. The merchant speaks to Gunnar as an equal partner in negotiation, rather than a supplicant seeking favor, their discussion revealing economic relationships based on mutual benefit rather than submission to superior force. Prices undergo serious debate, quality receives careful inspection, and terms emerge through bargaining that assumes both parties possess legitimate interests worth protecting through careful agreement. Your grain-hauling word provides opportunities to overhear conversations about farming techniques, seasonal challenges, and market conditions that govern the freed farmer's existence. Gunnar speaks knowledgeably about soil preparation, seed selection, and weather patterns that determine success or failure in agricultural ventures requiring years of planning and risk tolerance. The farmer's boat contains tools that represent significant investment in productivity, their quality suggesting someone with resources to purchase proper equipment rather than making do with salvaged materials. Iron implements show evidence of regular maintenance and replacement, indicating access to smith services that cost more than thralls see in years of labor. Gunnar's interactions with the harbor workers reveal social relationships unavailable to thralls, his status allowing casual conversation with free men who would never acknowledge a slave's existence. The exchanges include information about other farmers, market opportunities, and political developments that affect agricultural prospects throughout the region. The farmer's physical condition shows the effects of hard labor, tempered by adequate nutrition and medical care when needed. His scars tell stories of farming accidents rather than punishment, wounds healed properly rather than left to fester. The difference between necessary hardship and systematic brutality becomes visible in his bearing and general health. Economic independence manifests itself through Gunnar's decision-making process, his choices reflecting personal assessment of risks and opportunities rather than compliance with master's demands. The freedom to make mistakes carries the responsibility to live with consequences, but also opens possibilities for improvement through learning and adaptation. The merchant's treatment of Gunnar suggests that economic relationships can transcend social hierarchy when mutual benefit creates common interests stronger than traditional power structures. Commerce operates according to different rules than bondage, evaluation based on productive capacity rather than social position. Your observation of the farmer's prosperity plants seeds of dangerous hope despite recent lessons about escape's futility. Freedom appears possible through legitimate means, though the path requires resources and knowledge currently beyond your reach. The gap between thrall status and agricultural independence seems impossible, yet clearly navigable by someone with proper preparation. The grain-loading work ends with Gunnar's departure, his boat carrying wealth earned through honest labor, while you return to carrying buckets and splitting wood for masters who own your time and body. The contrast highlights the distance between slavery and freedom, measured not just in legal status, but in the daily realities of economic independence. Your memory preserves every detail of Gunnar's appearance, manner, and methods, storing information that might prove valuable if circumstances ever provide opportunity to pursue legitimate freedom. The farmer represents proof that social mobility remains possible despite systems designed to prevent change in status. Winter's fury. The blizzard arrives without warning, transforming familiar landscape into a howling wilderness where death stalks anyone caught beyond arm's reach of shelter. Wind drives snow with such violence that visibility disappears completely, the world becoming a white void where direction loses meaning and cold penetrates every layer of protection. You learn that nature possesses cruelty that surpasses any human master's capacity for systematic brutality. Your morning water-hauling task becomes an expedition through conditions that would challenge experienced travelers, each step between well and haul requiring careful navigation by rope and memory when landmarks vanish into swirling chaos. The buckets freeze solid within minutes of leaving the well, their contents transformed into blocks of ice that make the already brutal work impossibly difficult. The settlement's animals huddle together in shelters, barely adequate for normal winter weather, their survival dependent on constant human attention to maintain warmth and provide food when grazing becomes impossible. You spend hours breaking ice from water troughs and hauling hay from storage buildings that seem impossibly distant through the storm's fury. Indoor work becomes precious refuge from conditions that kill through exposure measured in minutes rather than hours. The great hall's fires providing warmth that feels miraculous after brief ventures into the storm's teeth. Every trip outside requires careful preparation and urgent execution. Tasks that normally take minutes expanding into life-threatening expeditions through hostile environment. The kitchen thralls work frantically to maintain food preparation while conserving fuel that becomes precious when gathering firewood means risking death in conditions that defeat normal safety measures. Cooking fires receive constant attention, their flames representing the difference between survival and slow death through hypothermia that claims the careless or unlucky. Your sleeping arrangements adapt to extreme conditions as thralls press together for shared body heat that makes the difference between rest and freezing wakefulness. Personal space becomes luxury impossible to maintain when survival depends on human warmth shared without regard for normal social boundaries or individual comfort preferences. The storm's violence eliminates most outdoor work, confining thralls to indoor tasks that create dangerous overcrowding in spaces barely adequate for normal occupancy. Tension rises as confinement combines with fear to create conflicts that would normally dissipate through physical separation and routine activity patterns. Food stores become critical concerns when hunting becomes impossible, and preserved supplies must sustain larger populations confined together without normal opportunities for supplemental nutrition through foraging or fishing. Every meal represents calculated risk between current need and future starvation when the storm prevents normal food acquisition activities. The blizzard tests building construction through wind pressure and snow accumulation that reveal weaknesses in structures adequate for normal weather. Roof repairs become emergency activities performed in conditions that make simple tasks potentially fatal, each venture outside requiring multiple volunteers to ensure anyone who collapses can be rescued. Your understanding of winter's true power expands beyond previous experience as the storm demonstrates natural forces that dwarf human concerns about slavery, freedom, or social hierarchy. Survival becomes the only consideration when nature's indifference makes all human distinctions meaningless in the face of universal vulnerability to cold and wind. The storm's duration stretches beyond normal patterns, day merging into night without visible transition, while wind maintains constant howling that penetrates every structure and drives everyone toward the edge of madness through relentless noise. Time loses meaning when darkness persists regardless of the hour, and no human activity proceeds normally. Your duties adapt to emergency conditions, as normal routines become impossible to maintain through the storm's violence. Water hauling shifts to melting snow in the Great Hall. Wood splitting moves indoors where sparks become fire hazards, and all work focuses on immediate survival rather than master's convenience or long-term planning. Recovery from the storm reveals damage that will require weeks to repair. Buildings damaged by wind and snow, while livestock losses create food shortages that affect everyone's survival prospects. The blizzard's aftermath teaches lessons about nature's power that make human authority seem fragile and temporary by comparison. Skills in shadow. The rope work begins during quiet moments when the overseer's attention turns elsewhere, your fingers learning basic knots through repetition disguised as simple maintenance tasks. Eric teaches you during wood-loading duties, his weathered hands demonstrating techniques while speaking of other subjects to avoid suspicion. Each knot serves specific purposes beyond simple binding, knowledge that could prove invaluable for escape attempts or construction projects. Your ship knowledge accumulates through careful observation during harbor duties, watching experienced sailors handle rigging and anchor systems while appearing to focus solely on cargo loading. The terminology embeds itself in memory through repetition. Understanding of wind direction and tide timing developing through months of exposure to maritime activities that surround the settlement's economic life. Canvas repair becomes another skill learned through necessity, when torn sails require mending before ships can return to profitable service. The needlework translates into other applications, teaching you techniques for repairing clothing, constructing shelter, or creating tools from available materials. Hand skills multiply through practice, disguised as routine labor. Cargo handling teaches you about weight distribution and leverage systems that make heavy lifting possible with minimal manpower. Understanding these principles opens possibilities for moving objects that would otherwise require multiple people, knowledge useful for construction projects or resource acquisition that demands efficiency over brute force strength. The harbor's loading procedures reveal patterns of trade goods and seasonal availability that govern economic relationships throughout the region. This information could prove valuable for understanding market timing, resource scarcity, or opportunities for profitable exchanges should circumstances ever permit independent economic activity. Knot tying extends beyond simple rope work into complex systems used for ship rigging and cargo securing. Each technique serves multiple purposes, the same principles applying to trap construction, tool making, or building projects that require reliable joining methods. Knowledge compounds through application to varied circumstances. Your understanding of wood properties grows through constant handling of different types used for various purposes around the settlement. Dense hardwood serves structural needs, while lighter materials work better for tools requiring flexibility. This knowledge proves useful for selecting appropriate materials when constructing anything from weapons to shelter components. Metalworking observation during harbor duties reveals techniques used for repairing ship hardware and maintaining tools essential for maritime operations. Understanding these processes provides insight into metal properties and working methods that extend beyond simple blacksmith activities into specialized applications for marine environments. The timing of tides becomes instinctive through daily exposure to harbor activities that depend on water levels for efficient operation. This knowledge could prove critical for any activity involving water travel, fishing, or resource gathering in coastal areas where tide timing affects accessibility and safety. Weather reading skills developed through necessity when outdoor work depends on predicting conditions that could become dangerous or make specific tasks impossible. Understanding cloud formations, wind patterns, and atmospheric pressure changes could prove invaluable for planning activities that require specific weather conditions. Navigation principles emerge through observation of how experienced sailors determine direction and position using natural indicators when leaving familiar coastal waters. These techniques could prove essential for any travel that extends beyond well-known local areas where landmarks provide reliable guidance for safe return. Your disguised learning creates capabilities that remain invisible to casual observation, while providing foundation skills for activities far removed from thrall duties. The knowledge accumulates slowly but systematically, each piece fitting into larger patterns that could support future activities requiring independence from normal settlement resources. The Feast of Wolves. The Great Hall transforms for the midwinter feast, its usual austerity replaced by tapestries depicting heroic battles, while long tables groan beneath roasted meats that speak of wealth and power beyond thrall comprehension. You move among the shadows serving ale to warriors whose gold arm rings catch firelight like captured stars, their casual discussions revealing political relationships that govern territories larger than entire kingdoms in your homeland. The guests arrive throughout the evening, each entry marking another lesson in the hierarchy that structures Norse society through displays of wealth that range from practical prosperity to legendary accumulation. Jarl Magnus wears silver so casually that precious metal becomes decoration rather than treasure, his retinue's weapons showing craftsmanship that represents fortune spent on functional art. Your serving duties provide proximity to conversations that reveal the mechanics of power, through casual references to land grants, trade monopolies, and legal precedents that shape lives across vast territories. The warriors speak of upcoming raids with the same tone merchants might use for discussing seasonal trade routes, violence becoming commerce through systematic application. The feast foods demonstrate abundance that mocks thrall rations, whole roasted animals accompanied by imported spices that cost more than most people see in lifetimes. Wine flows like water, while bread appears in quantities that could feed the thrall quarters for weeks, waste becoming statement of power through casual disregard for scarcity. Social dynamics reveal themselves through seating arrangements and conversation patterns that demonstrate complex relationships built on mutual benefit rather than simple domination. Warriors negotiate alliances through careful word choice while maintaining friendships that transcend immediate political advantage, their network extending across territories connected by shared interests rather than geographic proximity. The entertainment includes poetry recitations that celebrate heroic deeds while establishing precedents for future behavior, each saga serving as both history lesson and moral instruction for men whose decisions affect thousands of lives. The stories blend fact with mythology, creating cultural foundation that justifies current power structures through historical precedent. Your observations from the serving role provide education in political sophistication that operates far beyond simple strongman leadership. The negotiations revealing legal frameworks and diplomatic protocols that govern relationships between independent rulers. These men exercise authority through consensus building rather than pure intimidation. Female participation in the feast demonstrates social roles more complex than simple domestic service, the jarl's wife and daughters engaging in political discussions with authority that suggests significant influence in decision-making processes. Their presence modifies behavior patterns while adding layers of consideration to political negotiations. The drinking games and competitive displays serve multiple purposes beyond entertainment, providing opportunities for warriors to demonstrate capabilities while establishing social rankings through performance rather than birth or wealth alone. Merit plays visible role in determining respect levels among men accustomed to violence as profession. Gift exchanges during the feast create and strengthen political obligations through ceremonial presentation of weapons, jewelry, and valuable goods that represent more than simple generosity. Each gift carries implications for future reciprocity, while demonstrating wealth sufficient to treat precious items as diplomatic currency. The feast's conclusion brings private conversations between major participants, their discussions conducted in lowered voices that suggest business requiring discretion. Your position clearing tables provides opportunity to overhear fragments of planning sessions that could affect territorial boundaries and trade relationships. Your memory works to preserve every detail of customs, protocols, and relationship patterns that govern interactions among free men whose decisions create the framework within which thrall survival occurs. Understanding these systems could prove valuable for predicting changes that affect everyone's circumstances. Sacred and hidden. Your carving begins during the darkest hours before dawn, when sleep proves impossible and activity provides distraction from cold that penetrates every covering. The small piece of driftwood fits easily in your palm, its surface yielding slowly to careful work with a salvaged iron nail that serves as crude but effective carving tool. Each line requires patience and precision to avoid detection through casual observation. The cross takes shape gradually over many sessions, its simple form emerging from wood that already bears scars from ocean tumbling and beach weathering. Your Christian symbols must remain subtle enough to avoid identification by anyone unfamiliar with their meaning, while providing comfort through visual reminder of faith that survives, despite systematic attempts at suppression. Religious practice adapts to circumstances that make open worship dangerous or impossible, your prayers becoming silent conversation with deity who transcends human attempts at controlling spiritual expression. The carved symbols serve as focal points for meditation that maintains connection with beliefs that predate and will outlast current captivity. Memory becomes cathedral when physical structures remain unavailable. Your recollection of prayers, hymns, and scripture, providing spiritual architecture more permanent than stone buildings vulnerable to destruction by hostile forces. The internal practice develops strength through necessity, faith deepening through testing, rather than weakening through isolation. Your Christian identity requires careful concealment among people whose religious practices demand public participation in ceremonies honoring gods whose worship conflicts directly with monotheistic beliefs. The careful balance between necessary appearance and private conviction becomes daily challenge, requiring constant attention and diplomatic skill. Fellow Christians among the thralls identify each other through subtle signs and coded references that allow community formation while maintaining security against informants who might use religious differences to gain favor with masters. Trust develops slowly through shared risks rather than simple declaration of mutual faith. The pagan rituals surrounding major holidays require participation that tests the boundaries of religious compromise when survival depends on avoiding attention through non-conformity. Your presence at sacrificial ceremonies becomes theater, where external compliance masks internal resistance maintained through private prayer during public apostasy. Scripture memory provides spiritual sustenance during times when physical deprivation threatens to break resolve through systematic assault on hope. The familiar words offer stability that transcends immediate circumstances, while connecting current suffering with larger patterns of meaning that extend beyond visible reality. Your carved cross becomes tangible connection with homeland and family whose fate remains unknown, but whose memory provides motivation for survival through circumstances designed to break spirits along with bodies. The physical symbol anchors psychological resistance against dehumanization through systematic brutality. Religious discussions among Christian thralls occur in fragments during work periods when proximity allows brief exchanges that maintain community bonds while avoiding sustained conversation that might attract unwanted attention. Shared faith creates networks of mutual support that operate beneath the surface of visible thrall relationships. The theological questions raised by current circumstances require careful consideration when traditional answers seem inadequate for extreme situations involving forced participation in idolatrous practices and systematic violence against innocent people. Faith adapts through wrestling with difficult questions rather than simple acceptance of easy answers. Your spiritual practice grows more focused through adversity that strips away comfortable traditions while revealing essential elements that survive testing through extreme circumstances. The carved symbols become reminders of divine presence that transcends human attempts at controlling access to sacred truth through political or physical force. Steel and flesh. The jarl's son, Eric, approaches with wooden practice sword in hand, his 15-year-old frame already showing the muscle development of someone trained from childhood in the arts of violence. Your assignment as his sparring partner comes without warning or preparation, The overseer's explanation limited to pointing toward the training ground where Eric waits with poorly concealed excitement about testing his skills against living target. Your protective equipment consists of a battered wooden shield and thick leather vest that might deflect glancing blows, but offers little protection against determined assault from someone wielding real weapons. The practice session begins immediately. Eric's swordwork revealing training that emphasizes aggression over defensive technique, while treating your safety as secondary consideration to his skill development. The first exchange teaches you the difference between theatrical sword fighting and actual combat training, Eric's blade moving with speed and power that could easily break bones or cause permanent injury despite its wooden construction. Your shield work improves through necessity as poorly blocked strikes send shockwaves up your arm that suggest what iron would accomplish. Eric's enthusiasm for the combat training translates into increasing violence as the session progresses, his strikes aimed with precision that suggests deliberate intent to inflict pain rather than simply practice technique. You learn to read his attack patterns while managing the delicate balance between defensive competence and showing skill that might be perceived as threatening. The training weapons prove more dangerous than their wooden construction suggests. Eric's sword capable of delivering crushing blows that could easily fracture ribs or crack skulls if they connect with sufficient force. Your defensive technique develops through desperate necessity, as each blocked attack teaches lessons about leverage, timing, and position management. Combat footwork becomes instinctive through repetition of movements that keep you alive while providing Eric with challenging practice that satisfies his need for realistic training experiences. The techniques translate into general body awareness that could prove valuable in other dangerous situations, requiring quick reflexes and spatial judgment. Eric's commentary during the training reveals his understanding of weapon effectiveness and combat psychology, his observations suggesting military knowledge that extends beyond simple sword technique into battlefield tactics and strategic thinking. These discussions provide glimpses into the warrior mindset that governs Norse society through systematic application of violence. Your role as practice target requires careful management of Eric's mood and expectations, providing sufficient challenge to make the training worthwhile, while avoiding any display of competence that might suggest potential for rebellion or self-defense capability. The psychological aspects prove as demanding as the physical requirements. The session's duration depends entirely on Eric's satisfaction with the training quality, some days ending quickly, while others extend until exhaustion makes effective practice impossible. Your stamina becomes a factor in determining how much punishment you must absorb before being dismissed from duties that combine education with entertainment. Injury management becomes necessary skill, as regular combat training produces accumulating damage that must heal between sessions without affecting your ability to perform other duties. Eric shows no concern for your physical condition beyond its impact on training quality, treating you as equipment requiring minimal maintenance. The combat knowledge gained through forced participation provides understanding of weapon effectiveness and defensive techniques that could prove valuable if circumstances ever require actual self-defense. The lessons come wrapped in pain, but represent genuine martial education, unavailable through observation alone. Your appreciation for Eric's skill grows despite the brutality of training methods, his swordwork demonstrating years of dedicated practice and natural talent that make him a dangerous opponent despite his youth. Understanding his capabilities becomes survival skill, when predicting his reactions could mean avoiding serious injury. The network. Communication among thralls operates through systems more sophisticated than casual observation might suggest, your gradual inclusion in these networks revealing organization that exists beneath the surface of apparent submission to authority. Information flows through channels that connect every corner of the settlement, while maintaining security against informants who might trade knowledge for favor or safety. Trust develops slowly through careful observation of behavior patterns that reveal which thralls can be relied upon during emergencies, and which might report private conversations to gain advantage with masters. The process requires months of interaction before full acceptance into networks that share resources, information, and mutual protection against systematic brutality. Your wounded hand becomes entry point into medical knowledge networks that operate through shared understanding of herbal remedies, injury treatment, and disease prevention techniques. Eric's expertise represents accumulated wisdom from dozens of thralls who learned through necessity rather than formal training, their combined knowledge rivaling professional healers. Food acquisition networks coordinate foraging activities and resource sharing that supplement inadequate official rations through systematic cooperation rather than individual competition. Knowledge about seasonal availability, preparation techniques, and safe storage creates abundance from scarcity when properly organized and implemented. Escape planning information circulates cautiously through the most trusted network members, their discussions revealing previous attempts, security patterns, and geographical knowledge that could prove valuable for anyone contemplating flight. The information comes wrapped in warnings about consequences while maintaining hope that successful escape remains possible. Work coordination networks enable thralls to assist each other during particularly demanding tasks or when injury threatens someone's ability to meet productivity requirements that determine survival. The cooperation occurs invisibly to avoid master attention while providing crucial support for maintaining community survival rates. Religious networks connect Christian thralls through worship practices adapted to dangerous circumstances, their shared faith creating bonds that transcend ethnic differences while providing spiritual support for maintaining hope during systematic dehumanization. Prayer groups meet in fragments throughout daily activities. Language instruction networks help new arrivals learn Norse vocabulary, essential for survival, while preserving native languages through private conversation and cultural traditions maintained, despite efforts to eliminate non-Norse identity. Educational resources flow through voluntary teaching relationships that strengthen community bonds. Security networks monitor overseer behavior patterns and mood indicators that help predict when violence becomes more likely, allowing preventative action through careful positioning and task selection. Understanding danger signals helps entire thrall community avoid punishment through coordinated awareness of threatening situations. Trade networks enable thralls to exchange skills, materials, and services through barter systems that operate outside official oversight while providing access to resources unavailable through normal channels. Your forge experience becomes valuable commodity in exchanges that improve everyone's circumstances. Intelligence networks gather information about master activities, visitor arrivals, and political developments that could affect thrall circumstances or create opportunities for advancement. Knowledge about settlement dynamics helps predict changes that might improve or threaten current survival strategies. Your integration into these networks provides security and resources impossible to achieve through individual effort, while creating obligations for reciprocal support that strengthen community bonds. The relationships represent survival insurance that operates through mutual assistance rather than dependence on master benevolence. Ships from distant shores. The merchant vessel arrives with the morning tide, its foreign construction and exotic cargo creating excitement throughout the settlement, as traders prepare for negotiations that could bring wealth or conflict depending on diplomatic skill. Your assignment to the harbor work crew provides proximity to commercial activities that reveal economic relationships extending far beyond local political boundaries. Magnus the Far traveled steps onto the dock with confidence that speaks of extensive experience in dangerous markets, his rich clothing and armed escorts suggesting successful navigation of trade routes where violence and commerce intersect regularly. His ship carries goods from lands whose names exist only in stories, their material reality demonstrating connections between distant territories. The cargo manifests include walrus ivory from Greenland expeditions that risk everything for materials valued more highly than silver in southern markets. Amber from Baltic shores arrives in quantities that represent years of systematic collection and processing, each piece carrying sunlight from forests that existed before human memory began recording time. Your cargo handling duties provide opportunity to examine trade goods while learning about their origins and intended destinations through conversations between Magnus and local merchants. Silk from Eastern empires travels impossible distances to reach markets where its value makes dangerous journeys profitable despite enormous risks and investment requirements. Furs from Arctic regions demonstrate hunting skills and geographic knowledge that enable procurement of materials unavailable through local resources, their quality suggesting systematic relationships with native peoples who understand seasonal patterns and animal behavior necessary for successful acquisition of valuable pelts. The language skills displayed during negotiations reveal education that extends beyond simple commerce into diplomatic relationships necessary for conducting business across cultural boundaries, where misunderstanding could result in violence or economic disaster. Magnus speaks Norse, Saxon, and what might be Frankish with equal fluency. Silver coins from multiple kingdoms circulate during payment discussions, their varieties suggesting trade networks that span territories ruled by different authorities operating under various legal systems. The economic relationships transcend political boundaries through mutual benefit that makes cooperation profitable despite potential conflicts. The ship's construction techniques reveal technological knowledge that differs from local methods while achieving similar results through alternative approaches to engineering problems. Hull design, rigging systems, and steering mechanisms suggest innovation driven by different environmental challenges and material availability. Crew diversity demonstrates recruitment practices that value skill over ethnic origin, sailors from various lands working together through shared professional knowledge rather than cultural similarity. Their cooperation suggests commercial relationships that operate according to different principles than political alliances or military hierarchies. Navigation equipment includes instruments whose purpose remains mysterious, but whose careful maintenance suggests critical importance for successful long-distance travel across waters where landmarks disappear and direction finding becomes matter of survival. The tools represent accumulated knowledge about oceanic navigation. Your observations of loading procedures reveal organizational systems that maximize cargo capacity while maintaining ship stability and crew efficiency. The techniques suggest extensive experience with varied goods and changing weather conditions that affect safety during ocean travel, where mistakes prove fatal. The economic discussions overheard during work reveal market conditions in distant lands, price fluctuations that create opportunities for profitable arbitrage, and political developments that affect trade route security. Information becomes commodity, as valuable as physical goods when properly understood and applied. The price of defiance. Your minor infraction begins with accidentally spilling ale during evening service, the liquid splashing across the floor near where important guests conduct business that requires dignified surroundings. The mistake occurs through genuine clumsiness rather than deliberate defiance, but intention matters little when masters seek opportunities to reinforce authority through systematic demonstration of absolute power over thrall behavior. The overseer's response escalates beyond proportion to the actual offense, his interpretation of the accident as willful disrespect, providing justification for punishment designed to teach lessons about precision, submission, and the consequences of any action that could be construed as challenging established hierarchy. Public correction becomes theater for demonstrating proper relationships between masters and slaves. Your dragging to the punishment post occurs before assembled thralls, whose witnessing serves multiple purposes for authority maintenance, their forced observation providing education about consequences while testing their reactions to systematic brutality applied to someone they know personally. The demonstration operates through fear rather than simple retribution for specific transgression. The whipping begins with methodical precision that suggests extensive experience in applying pain for maximum educational effect, rather than simple expression of anger. Each stroke carries calculated force designed to inflict suffering without causing permanent damage that would reduce your future utility as productive labor. Efficiency governs even brutality, when economic considerations override emotional satisfaction. Your attempt to remain silent during the punishment fails as pain overwhelms willpower, involuntary screams providing satisfaction for masters while serving as audio reinforcement of lessons being taught to observing thralls. The sounds become part of the educational experience, demonstrating what awaits anyone who mistakes tolerance for weakness. Blood flows from torn flesh as the whip's iron tips find their mark with increasing frequency. Each impact teaching lessons about the reality of power relationships that operate without regard for fairness, proportionality, or human dignity. The physical damage becomes visible, reminder of abstract concepts made concrete through systematic application of violence. The thralls watching your punishment display carefully controlled expressions that reveal nothing of their internal responses to witnessing brutality applied to someone whose only crime involved clumsiness during routine duties. Their faces become masks that hide thoughts that could prove dangerous if revealed through involuntary expressions of sympathy or anger. Consciousness wavers as blood loss and pain combine to threaten your ability to remain standing throughout the punishment's duration. The physical limits of endurance approach, while psychological pressure intensifies through understanding that collapsing would provide justification for additional correction aimed at teaching proper behavior during disciplinary procedures. Recovery from the whipping requires days of careful wound management while maintaining normal work responsibilities that cannot be adjusted for healing needs. The torn flesh must mend without infection, while you perform duties that constantly threaten to reopen wounds through movements that stretch damaged tissue beyond its limited flexibility. Infection threatens during the healing process, as wounds exposed to dirt and contamination during regular work activities provide entry points for disease that could kill through blood poisoning if proper care becomes impossible under thrall living conditions. Survival depends on maintaining cleanliness despite circumstances designed to make hygiene nearly impossible. The scars that form during healing create permanent marks that identify you as someone who has undergone correction for defiance, their visibility serving as ongoing reminder to other thralls about consequences, while marking you for increased scrutiny from overseers who assume scarred thralls require closer supervision. Your understanding of power relationships deepens through direct experience with systematic brutality that operates according to principles designed to break resistance rather than simply punish specific infractions. The lesson penetrates deeper than physical pain, teaching submission through comprehensive assault on dignity and autonomy. smithy's secrets. The forge reveals its deeper mysteries through weeks of careful observation that extends beyond simple bellows operation into understanding metallurgical processes that transform raw iron into tools and weapons capable of changing lives through improved functionality. Your position allows witnessing techniques that represent accumulated knowledge spanning generations of craftsmen who solved engineering problems through practical experimentation. Advanced heat treatment methods become visible through watching the smith work iron at different temperatures, each stage requiring precise timing and temperature control that determines final product characteristics. Understanding these processes provides insight into material properties that could prove valuable for any project requiring metal components with specific performance requirements. Alloy creation occurs through careful addition of materials that modify iron's basic properties, the smith's knowledge extending beyond simple heating and hammering into chemistry that produces steel with characteristics impossible to achieve through pure iron alone. These techniques represent sophisticated understanding of material science applied through traditional methods. Toolmaking reveals construction principles that maximize efficiency while minimizing material waste, each implement designed to serve specific functions through shapes and proportions determined by practical experience rather than theoretical knowledge. Understanding these relationships provides foundation for creating custom tools adapted to unusual requirements. Weapon construction demonstrates metallurgy applied to combat requirements, where failure means death rather than simple inconvenience. The techniques emphasizing reliability and performance under extreme stress conditions. The knowledge could prove valuable for creating defensive weapons or understanding vulnerabilities in weapons used against you. Repair techniques show how damaged metal can be restored to functionality through processes that require understanding both original construction methods and creative problem solving when replacement materials differ from original specifications. These skills could prove essential for maintaining equipment when replacement becomes impossible. Quality assessment methods reveal how experienced smiths evaluate metal properties through visual, auditory, and tactile cues that indicate internal structure and performance capabilities. Understanding these diagnostic techniques provides ability to assess tool and weapon quality when making critical decisions about equipment reliability. Safety procedures around the forge demonstrate knowledge accumulated through painful experience with burns, toxic fumes, and flying sparks that can cause serious injury when proper precautions are ignored. This practical wisdom could prevent accidents during any future metalworking activities. Materials preparation shows how raw iron receives initial processing that determines final product quality. Improper preparation causing problems that become apparent only during later stages when correction requires complete restart of the entire process. Understanding these fundamentals provides foundation for any metalworking project. Timing coordination reveals how multiple projects proceed simultaneously around the forge, different items requiring varying amounts of heat treatment and cooling time. The organizational skills could apply to any complex project requiring coordination of multiple activities with different timing requirements. Customer interaction demonstrates how smiths communicate with clients who need specific tools or weapons but lack technical knowledge to specify exact requirements. The translation between functional needs and technical solutions provides model for similar communication challenges in other fields. The economic relationships governing forge operations reveal how skilled craftsmen command respect and compensation that elevates their social status above simple laborers despite working with their hands. Understanding these dynamics provides insight into how competence can modify social hierarchy when properly applied and recognized. Whispers of war. The planning discussions begin during the long winter evenings, when jarl and warriors gather around the Great Hall's fire to debate strategies for spring raids that could bring wealth or disaster depending on intelligence, preparation, and tactical execution. Your serving duties during these sessions provide proximity to military planning that reveals how organized violence generates prosperity through systematic application of superior force against weaker targets. Target selection involves careful analysis of intelligence gathered through trading relationships and previous reconnaissance. The warriors discussing coastal settlements that possess valuable goods while lacking adequate defenses against determined assault. Their conversations reveal knowledge about fortifications, garrison strength, and seasonal vulnerabilities that determine raid timing and approach strategies. Ship requirements dominate much discussion, as success depends on vessels capable of carrying sufficient warriors while providing rapid escape after successful completion of assault objectives. The logistics of maritime operations become apparent through debates about cargo capacity, crew requirements, and weather constraints that affect operational planning for expeditions extending across dangerous waters. Warrior recruitment strategies reveal how jarls build military forces through combinations of personal loyalty, economic incentive, and social pressure that bind fighters to dangerous enterprises where individual survival depends on group coordination and shared commitment to completing mission objectives regardless of casualties incurred during combat operations. Equipment preparation encompasses weapons maintenance, armor repair, and supply acquisition that enables sustained military operations far from home base while maintaining combat effectiveness throughout extended campaigns. The detailed planning suggests extensive experience with logistics requirements for successful military expeditions. Intelligence networks provide information about potential targets through merchant contacts, diplomatic relationships, and previous raid experiences that create databases of tactical knowledge, essential for selecting objectives that offer maximum profit with acceptable risk levels. Information becomes military asset as valuable as weapons or ships. Seasonal timing considerations affect all aspects of raid planning, as weather patterns, agricultural cycles, and political relationships create windows of opportunity when successful attacks become more likely, while defensive preparations remain inadequate. Understanding these patterns requires years of accumulated experience with maritime warfare. Weather prediction techniques allow military planners to coordinate complex operations across multiple ships and landing sites, while accounting for conditions that could prevent successful completion of raid objectives. Navigation skills become essential for coordinating attacks that require precise timing and position control. Diplomatic implications receive careful consideration, as raids must avoid triggering larger conflicts that could unite multiple enemies against the settlement while maintaining political relationships necessary for continued trade and territorial security. Military action operates within larger strategic frameworks that require sophisticated political analysis. Combat tactics discussed during planning sessions reveal approaches to assault, siege, and evacuation that maximize warrior effectiveness while minimizing casualties among valuable military personnel whose training represents significant investment in time and resources. Experience guides tactical development through systematic analysis of previous operations. Your observations during planning sessions provide education in military organization and strategic thinking that operates according to principles applicable to any form of organized competition where superior preparation and execution determine success or failure. The knowledge could prove valuable for understanding and predicting conflict patterns. The psychological aspects of warfare receive attention through discussions about maintaining warrior morale, managing fear during combat, and preserving unit cohesion under extreme stress conditions. Understanding these human factors could prove essential for surviving any situation requiring performance under pressure while working as part of coordinated group effort. The melting. The ice begins breaking apart with sounds like thunder rolling across the landscape. Massive sheets cracking under pressure that builds throughout winter until spring temperatures finally allow release of forces that transform frozen waterways into rushing torrents capable of destroying anything blocking their path. Your morning water duties become dangerous expeditions as familiar routes disappear beneath unstable surfaces. Seasonal work changes bring new responsibilities, as settlement activities adapt to spring conditions that permit outdoor labor impossible during winter's harshest months. Construction projects resume with renewed urgency. Agricultural preparation begins despite uncertain weather, and maintenance work addresses damage accumulated during months of storm and cold exposure. The harbor becomes scene of intense activity as ships undergo preparation for trading seasons and military expeditions that require seaworthy vessels capable of surviving ocean conditions while carrying valuable cargo or armed warriors to distant destinations. Your involvement in ship maintenance provides practical education in maritime technology and navigation requirements. Mud replaces snow as the dominant environmental challenge, creating conditions that make movement difficult while providing breeding grounds for diseases that threaten both human and animal populations. The settlement's drainage systems require constant attention to prevent flooding that could destroy stored food supplies and building foundations. Your clothing adapts to changing conditions as winter gear proves too warm for daytime temperatures, while remaining necessary for cold nights that remind everyone winter's grip loosens gradually rather than disappearing suddenly. The transition period demands flexibility in daily routines and equipment management. Food sources begin expanding as preserved winter supplies give way to fresh options that appear with seasonal changes, though scarcity continues because spring growth hasn't yet provided substantial nutrition. Foraging opportunities improve while hunting becomes possible in areas previously inaccessible due to weather conditions. Animal behavior changes dramatically as livestock emerge from winter shelters, requiring immediate attention to health issues that developed during months of confinement. Breeding cycles begin for species whose reproduction patterns follow seasonal indicators rather than human convenience, creating additional work demands during already busy periods. Building maintenance becomes urgent priority as structures damaged by winter weather require immediate repair before spring storms cause additional deterioration that could make problems irreparable. Your construction skills find application in projects ranging from simple leak repair to major structural reinforcement. Travel becomes possible again as roads emerge from snow while rivers open for boat transportation, though conditions remain dangerous due to flooding and unstable ground that can trap or injure unwary travelers. The settlement's isolation ends gradually as communication with distant communities resumes. Your energy levels increase with longer daylight hours and warmer temperatures that reduce the physical stress of maintaining body heat during outdoor work. Improved conditions allow more ambitious projects while creating pressure to accomplish goals that remain impossible during winter's restrictions. Mental attitudes shift throughout the settlement as winter's depression gives way to optimism about possibilities that accompany seasonal change. Planning for future activities replaces simple survival focus, though cautious optimism reflects understanding that spring brings new challenges along with improved conditions. The transformation process teaches lessons about adaptation and preparation as successful navigation of seasonal transitions requires, anticipating changing conditions while maintaining systems that function effectively under varied circumstances. Understanding these principles could prove valuable for managing any situation involving significant environmental or circumstantial changes. Laws of the Althing. The legal discussions begin during evening gatherings, when the jarl receives visitors who bring news from the Althing Assembly, where Iceland's most powerful men gather annually to settle disputes that could reshape territorial boundaries and determine the fates of entire communities. Your cleaning duties in the Great Hall provide opportunity to overhear conversations about legal precedents and political relationships that govern power distribution throughout the island. Property disputes dominate much conversation, as land ownership questions affect agricultural productivity and taxation obligations that determine each settlement's prosperity. The complex relationships between landowners, tenant farmers, and displaced persons create legal challenges requiring sophisticated understanding of traditional law and political negotiation to resolve equitably. Blood debt cases reveal how violence creates ongoing obligations that span generations, unless properly resolved through legal mechanisms designed to prevent endless cycles of revenge killing. The discussions demonstrate how formal law provides alternatives to private warfare, while maintaining social order through systems that balance justice against practical considerations. Marriage arrangements involve legal negotiations that affect property inheritance, political alliances, and social status in ways that extend far beyond personal relationships. The economic and political implications of matrimonial decisions require careful consideration of legal consequences that could affect entire families for decades. Trade regulation cases show how commercial disputes receive resolution through legal frameworks that protect legitimate business while preventing fraud and exploitation that could undermine economic relationships essential for community prosperity. Understanding these principles provides insight into commercial law applicable beyond immediate local circumstances. Criminal prosecution procedures reveal how serious offenses receive investigation and punishment through systematic processes designed to maintain social order while protecting individual rights. The balance between community security and personal liberty requires sophisticated legal thinking that considers multiple perspectives and long-term consequences. Slave status questions affect your immediate circumstances, as legal definitions of thrall rights and obligations determine daily survival conditions while providing potential pathways to freedom through established procedures. Understanding these laws could prove essential for navigating opportunities that might lead to improved legal status. Political alliance negotiations demonstrate how powerful families and communities create mutual support networks through formal agreements that provide security against external threats, while establishing frameworks for cooperation in military and economic ventures. These relationships operate according to legal principles that govern their formation and dissolution. Inheritance law discussions reveal how property transfers between generations while accounting for competing claims from multiple heirs, creditors, and political obligations. The complexity of these arrangements suggests sophisticated legal systems that have evolved to handle wealth management across changing circumstances. Religious law considerations affect all other legal matters, as Christian and pagan traditions create competing frameworks for understanding legitimate authority, moral obligation, and social responsibility. The integration of different legal traditions requires diplomatic skills that balance practical necessity against ideological consistency. Court procedure explanations demonstrate how formal legal proceedings operate through established protocols designed to ensure fair consideration of evidence while maintaining dignity appropriate for serious decision-making processes. Understanding these procedures could prove valuable for anyone required to participate in legal proceedings. Your observations during these discussions provide education in legal thinking that operates according to principles applicable to any situation involving competing claims, limited resources, and the need for decisions that multiple parties will accept as legitimate. This knowledge could prove essential for understanding how power operates through formal systems rather than simple force. The hidden blade. The small knife arrives through Eric's careful coordination with other veteran thralls who understand that survival sometimes requires capabilities beyond passive endurance and submission to authority. Its acquisition involves complex negotiations and careful timing, as weapons possession by thralls carries death penalty if discovered, making the blade both protection and potential execution warrant. Your concealment technique requires practice and careful attention to daily movements that could reveal the weapon's presence through accidental exposure or behavioral changes that suggest possession of forbidden items. The knife fits against your leg beneath clothing, its presence constant reminder of both defensive capability and mortal danger should detection occur. Training in weapon use occurs during brief moments when Eric can provide instruction without attracting attention from overseers or other thralls whose knowledge could prove dangerous if they decide cooperation with authority offers better survival prospects than community loyalty. Each lesson carries risks that extend beyond simple punishment into execution territory. The blade's construction reveals sophisticated metalworking that creates effective weapon despite limitations imposed by secrecy and material constraints. Its design emphasizes concealment over traditional weapon appearance, while maintaining functional capability for defensive applications where failure means death rather than simple injury. Understanding combat applications requires mental rehearsal of scenarios where weapon use becomes necessary for survival, while accepting that employment automatically escalates any conflict into life or death situation where victory means escape and defeat means execution. The psychological preparation proves as demanding as physical training. Maintenance procedures ensure weapon effectiveness while preventing detection through telltale signs of metal care that could reveal possession to observant overseers. Oil application, edge sharpening, and corrosion prevention must occur invisibly within normal daily routines, while maintaining readiness for emergency use. Group security depends on limiting knowledge of weapon possession to trusted thralls, whose reliability has been tested through months of shared danger and mutual support. Information security becomes survival skill, as casual conversation could easily transform protection into death sentence through inadvertent revelation. Trigger scenarios receive careful consideration as weapon employment must remain last resort option when alternatives offer no survival possibility. Understanding when escalation becomes necessary requires judgment that balances immediate danger against long-term consequences of violent resistance to authority. The escape planning implications suggest how weapon possession could support freedom attempts, while recognizing that armed resistance dramatically increases punishment severity if capture occurs. The blade represents option rather than solution, tool rather than guarantee for survival strategies that require multiple components for success. Psychological effects of weapon possession include confidence that comes from defensive capability, balanced against constant awareness of death penalty that accompanies discovery. The mental burden requires management techniques that prevent behavioral changes that could attract unwanted attention from suspicious overseers. Training exercises with Eric reveal combat principles applicable beyond simple knife fighting into general self-defense and situational awareness that could prove valuable in any dangerous circumstances. Understanding violence dynamics provides education in threat assessment and response options available when normal social protections disappear. Your integration of weapon capability into survival strategy requires constant evaluation of risk versus benefit while maintaining appearance of complete submission to authority. The blade becomes secret resource rather than obvious advantage, hidden strength rather than visible deterrent in circumstances where power relationships remain fundamentally unequal despite individual preparation. A warrior's shadow. The respected landowner, Ragnar Ironhand, arrives with retinue that demonstrates the security and prosperity available to those who successfully navigate the transition from warrior status to territorial ownership through accumulated wealth and political connections. His casual confidence speaks of someone who commands rather than serves, whose decisions affect other people's survival while his own remains secure. Your serving duties during his visit provide proximity to power exercised through legitimate authority rather than simple force. Watching how former warriors maintain respect through reputation while building wealth through systematic application of violence translated into economic advantage. The transformation from fighter to landowner reveals social mobility patterns that operate through specific pathways. Ragnar's equipment displays wealth applied to practical purposes, as his weapons, armor, and horses represent functional assets that maintain his position, while demonstrating capacity for violence that discourages challenges to his authority. Quality becomes statement of capability, rather than simple ornamentation. Tools rather than decorations, despite their obvious value. Political discussions during his negotiations with the jarl reveal how warrior reputation translates into diplomatic advantage when backed by demonstrated capability for enforcing agreements through violence if necessary. Past military achievements become credentials for present economic relationships that operate through implied threat rather than constant aggression. His followers display loyalty based on mutual benefit rather than simple fear, as their service receives compensation through opportunities for advancement and wealth accumulation that make association profitable. The relationship operates through professional rather than purely personal bonds, business arrangements rather than feudal obligations. Territory management techniques discussed during business conversations reveal how land ownership requires systematic organization to generate sustainable income while maintaining political relationships necessary for protection against external threats. Agricultural productivity becomes foundation for military capability through economic resources that purchase equipment and loyalty. Legal standing demonstrated through his interactions with local authorities shows how warrior achievement translates into social position that provides access to formal power structures unavailable to those lacking military credentials. Status creates opportunities, while reputation provides security against casual interference. Economic relationships with merchants and craftsmen reveal how former warriors leverage reputation into commercial advantage, while understanding that prosperity requires protection through maintained capability for violence when necessary. Business success depends on balance between profitable cooperation and credible deterrent against exploitation. Your observations of his manner and methods provide education in leadership techniques that command respect through competence rather than fear alone. Understanding how authority operates through combination of capability and restraint could prove valuable for anyone seeking advancement through legitimate rather than purely violent means. Strategic thinking displayed in his planning conversations suggests sophisticated understanding of long-term consequences and complex relationships that govern successful territorial management. Military experience translates into administrative skills that prove essential for maintaining position once achieved through combat prowess. Training evidence visible in his movements and weapon handling reveals ongoing maintenance of combat capability despite transition to primarily economic activities. Former warriors retain dangerous skills while developing new competencies that support position through multiple avenues, rather than depending solely on personal fighting ability. Your assessment of the warrior's example provides insight into potential pathways from current circumstances toward positions of legitimate authority and economic independence. Understanding the requirements and methods could prove essential for planning advancement strategies that move beyond simple survival toward actual prosperity and security. Reading the currents. Social dynamics within the settlement reveal themselves through careful observation of interaction patterns that signal mood changes, political tensions, and shifting relationships among people whose decisions could affect your survival in ways beyond immediate work assignments. Understanding these currents requires attention to subtle cues that predict dangerous developments before they become obvious threats. The overseer's behavior patterns provide early warning system for times when violence becomes more likely, as his mood indicators suggest when minor infractions will receive major punishment versus periods when errors might be overlooked. Reading facial expressions, voice tone, and body language becomes survival skill more valuable than physical strength or technical competence. Political tensions between free men create atmospheric pressure that affects everyone within the settlement, as conflicts over land rights, trade agreements, and legal precedents generate stress that flows downward through social hierarchy. Thralls suffer when their masters experience pressure, making awareness of larger conflicts essential for predicting immediate dangers. Economic relationships fluctuate with trade success, harvest outcomes, and external political developments that create prosperity or scarcity, affecting everyone's circumstances while determining resource allocation patterns. Understanding these cycles helps predict when food becomes scarcer, work intensifies, or opportunities for advancement might appear through changing needs. Weather patterns influence human behavior as seasonal changes, storms, and temperature variations affect mood and activity levels throughout the settlement. Predicting how environmental conditions will impact social relationships provides advantage for positioning yourself favorably when circumstances become difficult or dangerous. Religious observances create predictable rhythms of celebration and restriction that affect work schedules, food distribution, and social behavior in ways that could provide opportunities or create dangers depending on your preparation and positioning. Understanding these patterns helps navigate complex cultural requirements while maintaining necessary relationships. Military preparations generate excitement and tension that alters normal routines while creating opportunities for advancement through demonstrated competence or loyalty during challenging periods. Reading the signs of upcoming raids or defensive preparations allows positioning for potential benefits while avoiding unnecessary risks. Visitor arrivals bring news and opportunities that could change your circumstances through new information, economic opportunities, or political developments affecting the settlement's relationships with external communities. Understanding how to interpret and respond to these changes could prove essential for advancement planning. Thrall community dynamics operate according to unspoken rules and shifting alliances that determine access to resources, information, and protection through mutual support networks. Reading these relationships correctly helps maintain beneficial connections while avoiding association with individuals whose problems could become yours through proximity. Master-thrall relationships vary significantly based on individual personalities, current circumstances, and historical precedents that create different survival strategies for different situations. Understanding how to adapt behavior appropriately for specific relationships prevents unnecessary conflict while maximizing opportunities for advancement. Seasonal work transitions create periods of increased danger and opportunity as changing tasks require new skills while altering social relationships and resource access patterns. Predicting and preparing for these transitions helps maintain advantageous positioning during vulnerable periods when adaptation becomes essential. Your growing ability to read social currents provides foundation for strategic thinking about long-term advancement rather than simple day-to-day survival. Understanding how systems operate enables planning for change rather than simply reacting to circumstances beyond your control. The burning lesson. The jarl's rage erupts without warning during evening meal service when you accidentally spill ale near where important documents rest on the high table, the liquid threatening to damage contracts that represent significant economic relationships requiring careful preservation. Your clumsy accident becomes excuse for demonstration that teaches precision through pain, applied with systematic brutality designed to create permanent memory. Your forced approach to the brazier occurs while guests watch with varying degrees of interest and discomfort, some finding entertainment in thrall punishment, while others show visible distaste for unnecessary cruelty applied as public spectacle. The warrior Ragnar's expression reveals particular disgust at the jarl's methods, suggesting different approaches to authority and discipline. The burning wood selection receives careful attention as the jarl chooses pieces hot enough to inflict serious injury, while avoiding permanent damage that would reduce your future utility as productive labor. His expertise in applying pain suggests extensive experience with using physical torture as teaching method rather than simple expression of anger. Your grip on the burning timber requires absolute steadiness despite pain that threatens to overwhelm willpower and physical control. The lesson teaching precision under extreme duress while demonstrating consequences of carelessness during important occasions. Each second feels like eternity, while your flesh sears against hot wood that teaches through agony. The smell of burning flesh fills the great hall as your palms blister against the heated wood, providing sensory reinforcement of lessons being taught to all observers about consequences of failing to meet expected standards of performance. The demonstration operates through multiple senses to ensure memorable impact. Consciousness wavers as pain reaches levels that threaten your ability to maintain required grip on the burning wood. Physical limits approaching while psychological pressure intensifies through understanding that releasing the timber would provide justification for additional correction. Endurance becomes survival skill, tested beyond normal human capacity. The warrior's intervention comes through subtle gesture, rather than direct challenge to the jarl's authority, his position allowing suggestions about appropriate punishment duration while maintaining respect for hosts' prerogatives. Political considerations govern even expressions of disapproval when power relationships require careful navigation. Your release from the burning wood occurs when the lesson achieves desired impact without crossing into territory that might create permanent disability, affecting your economic value. The jarl's calculation balances educational effectiveness against practical considerations of thrall productivity and replacement costs. Medical treatment follows immediately through application of cold water and healing salves that prevent infection while promoting recovery sufficient to maintain work capability. The same hands that inflicted injury provide treatment, demonstrating systematic approach to punishment that considers long-term consequences. Recovery requires days of careful wound management, while performing modified duties that accommodate limited hand functionality without reducing overall productivity expectations. Adaptation becomes survival skill, as normal tasks require creative approaches when physical capabilities are temporarily compromised. The scars that form during healing create permanent reminder of the lesson, while marking you as someone who has undergone correction for serious infractions. Their visibility serves ongoing educational purpose for other thralls, while identifying you for increased scrutiny from overseers who assume scarred workers require closer supervision. Your understanding of precision requirements deepens through direct experience with consequences of carelessness when stakes extend beyond simple inconvenience into permanent physical damage. The lesson penetrates beyond surface level into fundamental changes in attention patterns and risk assessment that affect all future activities. Mending what's broken. The fishing nets arrive in your workspace torn and tangled from recent storms that tested their construction beyond designed limits, their damage representing both immediate problem requiring solution and metaphor for your own circumstances that need similar attention and repair. Your assignment to net mending provides quiet work that allows reflection while building skills applicable beyond immediate fishing needs. Your fingers learn to work with precision despite ongoing sensitivity from burn injuries, the delicate thread work requiring careful attention to tension and knot placement that creates strength through proper technique rather than simple force. Each repair strengthens the net while teaching principles applicable to other construction and maintenance challenges. The metal hooks embedded in the netting demand respect, as their sharp points draw blood from careless handling, each cut serving as reminder about attention requirements when working with dangerous materials. Your collection of small wounds accumulates through learning process that teaches caution through direct experience with consequences. Pattern recognition develops through understanding how net construction distributes stress across interconnected elements, each strand supporting others while sharing loads that would break individual components if applied directly. The engineering principles could prove valuable for any project requiring distributed strength rather than simple massive construction. Knotwork techniques expand beyond simple joining into specialized applications that create different performance characteristics depending on intended use. Some knots prioritize holding strength, while others emphasize easy release, each serving specific functions that require understanding of engineering principles underlying their construction. Material properties become apparent through handling different types of cord and thread, their characteristics determining appropriate applications while teaching about durability, flexibility, and strength relationships that affect all construction projects. Understanding these properties helps select appropriate materials for specific requirements. Repair philosophy emerges through decisions about when to patch existing damage versus replacing entire sections, economic considerations balancing immediate convenience against long-term reliability. These principles could apply to any maintenance situation where resource limitations require careful planning about intervention strategies. Your damaged hands find healing through gentle but persistent activity that promotes blood circulation while preventing stiffness that could create permanent limitations. The work becomes physical therapy disguised as productive labor, recovery happening through useful activity rather than simple rest. Time management skills develop through balancing repair quality against productivity requirements, each net needing sufficient attention to ensure reliable performance while avoiding perfectionism that prevents completion of assigned work quotas. Efficiency becomes survival skill when production standards must be met despite physical limitations. The meditative aspects of repetitive handwork provide psychological benefits during recovery from traumatic punishment. The gentle rhythm helping process emotional impacts while maintaining focus on productive activity. Mental healing accompanies physical recovery through engagement with meaningful work. Quality assessment techniques reveal how to evaluate repair effectiveness through testing methods that predict performance under actual use conditions. Understanding these diagnostic approaches could prove valuable for any situation requiring reliability assessment of constructed or repaired items. Your growing expertise in network creates valuable skill that could provide economic opportunities in communities where fishing represents important survival activity. The knowledge extends beyond immediate thrall duties into capabilities that might support independent economic activity if circumstances ever permit advancement beyond current status. The Skull Splitter arrives. The great chieftain, Thorvald's Skull Splitter's arrival transforms the settlement's atmosphere into electric tension that affects everyone from the highest jarl to the lowest thrall, his legendary reputation preceding him like thunder before lightning. His ship appears on the horizon flying banners that command instant recognition, while his escort vessels reveal wealth and military power that dwarf local resources through their size, equipment, and professional crew organization. The harbor preparation becomes frantic activity, as every available worker contributes to creating reception worthy of someone whose decisions could reshape territorial boundaries across Iceland through legal pronouncements or military action. Your participation in the preparation work provides proximity to power at its highest levels, while demonstrating the vast gap between local authority and ultimate political control. Thorvald's physical presence commands attention through bearing that suggests absolute confidence in his authority and capability for violence when necessary. His age shows in grey-streaked beard and weathered face, but his movements retain warrior precision, while his eyes evaluate everything with calculation that misses no detail of strategic or economic significance. His retinue displays wealth and military capability that represents accumulated success over decades of warfare, politics, and economic development extending across multiple territories. Each warrior shows quality equipment and professional bearing, while their diversity suggests recruitment based on competence rather than simple tribal loyalty or geographic proximity. The settlement's response reveals how local power structures adapt to accommodate superior authority through careful displays of respect that acknowledge hierarchy while maintaining dignity, appropriate for established leadership. The jarl's careful balance between deference and independence demonstrates political skills necessary for survival at these elevated levels. Economic implications become apparent through discussions about trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and taxation obligations that could affect everyone's prosperity while establishing frameworks for future relationships. Thorvald's casual mention of significant sums demonstrates resources that make local wealth seem modest by comparison. Legal authority manifests through his role in mediating disputes that local systems cannot resolve, his judgments carrying weight of established precedent while creating new standards for future similar situations. Understanding these processes provides education in how formal power operates through systematic application of recognized procedures. Military discussions reveal strategic thinking that operates across multiple territories and considers threats requiring coordinated responses beyond local capability. The scale of planning suggests warfare conducted according to principles that extend far beyond simple raiding into systematic campaign development and political manipulation. Cultural sophistication displays itself through his knowledge of law, poetry, and religious traditions that demonstrate education extending beyond simple military competence into areas requiring scholarly study and diplomatic experience. His authority derives from intellectual capability as much as physical prowess or economic resources. Your serving duties during his visit provide unprecedented proximity to absolute power, while demonstrating your complete invisibility to someone operating at levels where individual thralls represent negligible economic significance. The experience teaches humility, while revealing the ultimate destination for successful advancement through social hierarchy. Political negotiations observed during his discussions reveal how territorial control operates through complex relationships involving legal precedent, economic obligation, and military capability balanced against diplomatic necessity. Understanding these dynamics provides insight into how power flows through formal systems rather than simple personal authority. The chieftain's departure leaves lasting impact on settlement dynamics, as his visit establishes new precedents for future relationships, while demonstrating standards of wealth, organization, and political sophistication that define success at the highest levels. Your observation of his methods provides template for understanding what advancement ultimately requires. Serving gods among men. Your assignment to serve ale during the chieftain's evening feast provides proximity to conversations that reveal how ultimate power operates through casual discussion of territorial grants, legal precedents, and military campaigns that affect thousands of lives through decisions made between drinks. The warriors around Thrall speak with authority born from experience, managing resources and populations across vast territories. The discussions reveal economic relationships that span multiple kingdoms as trade agreements, taxation obligations, and territorial boundaries receive casual adjustment through verbal agreements backed by military capability. Silver flows in quantities that represent entire settlements' annual production, while decisions about land ownership reshape political relationships across Iceland. Legal precedents emerge through stories about previous disputes and their resolutions, each case establishing frameworks for future judgments, while demonstrating how formal law develops through accumulated decisions rather than abstract principles. Understanding these processes provides education in how justice operates at levels where individual cases affect entire communities. Military planning discussions reveal campaign strategies that operate across seasonal cycles and consider logistical requirements for moving armies, feeding warriors, and maintaining equipment over extended periods. The scale of preparation suggests warfare conducted according to sophisticated principles that extend far beyond local raiding into systematic conquest and territorial control. Political relationships receive careful attention as alliance networks, marriage arrangements, and trade partnerships create webs of obligation and mutual support that provide security against external threats while establishing frameworks for cooperation in military and economic ventures. These systems operate according to diplomatic protocols that require extensive knowledge and careful maintenance. Territorial administration becomes apparent through discussions about population management, resource allocation, and infrastructure development that maintain prosperity while generating revenue for military and political activities. The complexity suggests governmental systems that operate according to systematic principles rather than simple personal authority. Cultural knowledge displays itself through references to poetry, religious traditions, and historical precedents that demonstrate education extending beyond military competence into scholarly areas requiring extensive study and intellectual development. Leadership operates through cultural authority as much as physical or economic power. Your invisible presence during these conversations provides education in political sophistication that operates far beyond local concerns into regional and international relationships that determine prosperity and security for entire populations. Understanding these systems reveals the ultimate scope of successful advancement through social hierarchy. Economic intelligence gathering occurs through careful questioning about market conditions, resource availability, and production capabilities that affect strategic planning for military campaigns and territorial expansion. Information becomes valuable commodity that influences decision-making at the highest levels of political authority. Religious considerations affect all other discussions as pagan and Christian traditions create competing frameworks for understanding legitimate authority and moral obligation. The integration of different belief systems requires diplomatic skills that balance practical necessity against ideological consistency while maintaining support from diverse populations. Succession planning receives attention through discussions about inheritance, political alliances, and preparation of next-generation leaders who must maintain territorial control and political relationships across changing circumstances. Understanding these requirements reveals the extensive preparation necessary for successful leadership at ultimate levels. Your observations during this unprecedented access to ultimate power provide template for understanding what advancement ultimately requires while demonstrating the vast distance between current circumstances and the pinnacle of political achievement represented by chieftain authority. Wisdom and judgment. The complex legal dispute brought before Thrall for resolution involves territorial boundaries, inheritance rights, and blood debt obligations that local authorities cannot resolve through normal procedures, requiring intervention from someone whose authority transcends local political relationships. Your position clearing dishes provides opportunity to witness sophisticated legal reasoning applied to problems that affect entire communities. The case presentation reveals how formal legal proceedings operate through established protocols that ensure fair consideration of evidence while maintaining dignity appropriate for serious decision-making. Each party receives opportunity to present their position, while supporting evidence receives careful evaluation according to traditional precedents and established legal principles. Witness testimony demonstrates how truth emerges through systematic questioning that reveals contradictions, confirms facts, and establishes credibility of different accounts. Thrall's questioning technique shows sophisticated understanding of human psychology and legal procedure developed through extensive experience with similar disputes. Legal precedents receive careful citation, as previous cases provide frameworks for understanding current situation, while establishing consistency in judicial decision-making. The accumulated body of law demonstrates how legal systems develop through systematic application of principles across multiple cases and changing circumstances. Evidence evaluation shows how physical proof, witness testimony, and documentary records combine to establish facts while accounting for potential bias, error, or deliberate deception. Understanding these analytical techniques provides insight into systematic approaches to determining truth in complex situations. The decision process reveals how competing claims receive resolution through careful weighing of legal principles, practical consequences, and political considerations that affect multiple communities. Thrall's judgment demonstrates wisdom that extends beyond simple rule application into creative problem-solving that addresses underlying causes of conflict. Compensation arrangements show how legal resolutions operate through systematic redress that addresses injuries while preventing future conflicts through clear establishment of obligations and expectations. The financial and political aspects of settlement demonstrate how law operates through practical mechanisms rather than abstract principles. Political implications become apparent as the judgment affects relationships between multiple communities while establishing precedents for future similar disputes. Understanding these broader consequences reveals how individual legal decisions contribute to larger patterns of political stability and territorial control. Enforcement mechanisms demonstrate how legal authority translates into practical implementation through combination of political pressure, economic incentive, and military capability. The systematic approach to ensuring compliance reveals sophisticated understanding of power relationships and human motivation. Your observation of wisdom applied to complex problems provides education in sophisticated thinking that considers multiple perspectives, long-term consequences, and systematic approaches to problem solving. Understanding these methods could prove valuable for any situation requiring careful analysis and strategic decision-making. The proceedings' conclusion establishes new precedent while resolving immediate conflict, demonstrating how effective leadership operates through combination of legal knowledge, political skill, and moral authority that commands respect from all parties. This represents the ultimate application of accumulated wisdom to practical governance. Thrall's demonstration of judicial capability reveals another dimension of ultimate authority that operates through intellectual competence rather than simple force, showing how successful leadership requires development of multiple capabilities that support political position through various means rather than depending solely on military or economic power. The spring raid announced. The jarl's announcement comes during the evening feast following Thrall's departure, his words carrying new authority gained through association with ultimate power, while revealing opportunities that could transform your circumstances through demonstration of courage and competence under combat conditions. The spring raid requires additional warriors, creating potential pathways from thrall status toward legitimate military service. The target selection involves coastal settlements in the Hebrides, whose wealth attracts repeated raids, while their defensive capabilities remain limited enough to ensure reasonable chances of success with proper planning and execution. The expedition represents systematic application of violence for economic gain, rather than simple random assault, requiring discipline and coordination among participants. Crew requirements exceed current available warriors, as the planned operation demands sufficient manpower to overcome resistance while managing ships and cargo during potentially dangerous return voyage. Your inclusion among possible participants demonstrates recognition of capabilities developed through months of survival and skill acquisition, rather than simple desperation for additional bodies. Equipment preparation becomes intensive activity, as weapons receive sharpening, armor undergoes repair, and ships require maintenance to ensure seaworthy condition for ocean travel under potentially hostile circumstances. Your involvement in preparation work provides education in military logistics, while demonstrating competence that could influence selection for actual participation. Training intensifies for all potential participants as combat skills, ship handling, and coordination techniques receive focused attention during weeks leading to departure. The systematic approach reveals sophisticated understanding of military preparation while providing opportunities to demonstrate capabilities that could affect advancement prospects. Selection criteria emphasize proven reliability, demonstrated courage, and practical skills that contribute to expedition success rather than simple physical strength or noble birth. Your months of survival under brutal conditions, while developing useful capabilities, position you favorably for consideration among candidates for warrior status. The psychological transformation from thrall to potential warrior requires fundamental changes in self-perception and behavioral patterns, as military service demands different responses to authority, danger, and opportunity than simple survival under slavery. Understanding these requirements becomes essential for successful transition to military status. Economic incentives include shares of raid profits, proportional to contribution and risk level, creating opportunities for wealth accumulation that could support further advancement through investment in equipment, training, or political relationships. Success in military ventures opens pathways unavailable through other advancement strategies. Social implications involve elevation from thrall status to warrior recognition, fundamental change in legal standing, and community position that affects all future relationships and opportunities. Military service represents legitimized violence that commands respect, while providing access to networks unavailable to agricultural or commercial workers. Risk assessment reveals significant dangers including death in combat, capture by enemies, shipwreck during ocean travel, and punishment for failure or cowardice that could result in execution or return to slave status under worse conditions. Understanding these stakes provides foundation for realistic decision-making about participation. Your decision-making process involves careful evaluation of advancement potential against survival risks, while considering alternative pathways that might achieve similar objectives through different means. The opportunity represents possible transformation, but requires commitment to violence and danger that could eliminate all future possibilities through death or serious injury. The announcement's aftermath creates electric atmosphere throughout the settlement as potential participants evaluate opportunities, while those excluded express varying degrees of disappointment or relief. Your own contemplation of the possibility marks fundamental shift from simple survival focus toward active planning for advancement through legitimate but dangerous means. The long night's end. The carved cross emerges slowly from driftwood worn smooth by countless tides. Your careful work with the hidden knife, creating simple lines that form the sacred symbol, connecting you to faith and homeland across the vast distances that separate your current circumstances from everything once familiar. The wood yields to patient carving as you work by dim firelight when others sleep, each cut a prayer carved in silence. Your hands move with practiced stealth, developed through months of concealing forbidden activities. The tiny shavings disappearing into shadows, while the cross takes shape through work that must remain invisible to casual observation. The symbol becomes tangible connection to beliefs that transcend immediate circumstances, while anchoring identity that slavery cannot completely erase despite systematic efforts. The hiding place beneath your sleeping straw requires careful arrangement that conceals the carved cross, while allowing easy access during moments when private prayer becomes necessity for maintaining hope through another day of brutal servitude. The sacred object joins your small collection of forbidden items, representing resistance through preservation of humanity. Your mental inventory of the complete social ladder spreads before you like a map of possibilities revealed through months of careful observation and painful education. From Gunnar, the freed farmer's modest dignity, counting his silver coins, to warrior Ragnar's confident authority, commanding respect through proven capability, to chieftain Thorvald's absolute power, reshaping territories through casual decisions. Each encounter taught lessons about advancement requirements, while revealing the specific skills, knowledge, and relationships necessary for navigating transition between social levels. The path from thrall to free man extends through identifiable stages, requiring different capabilities and involving distinct risks that must be understood before attempting progression. The spring raid opportunity represents first concrete chance for legitimate advancement beyond current circumstances, though success requires surviving combat while demonstrating competence that earns recognition rather than simply avoiding death through luck or cowardice. Military service opens pathways closed to agricultural or commercial advancement strategies. Your body bears the marks of survival education, carved by months of brutal instruction in precision, endurance, and adaptation to circumstances beyond personal control. Burn scars from punishment, cuts from dangerous work, and calluses from endless labor tell stories of learning through pain while building capabilities essential for advancement. The skills accumulated through necessity create foundation for potential success in future circumstances, requiring construction ability, weapon knowledge, social awareness, and psychological resilience developed through surviving systematic dehumanization while maintaining sense of self-worth and future possibility. Your understanding of power relationships extends from immediate survival tactics through complex political dynamics that govern territorial control and economic relationships at the highest levels of society. Knowledge gained through observation provides education unavailable through formal instruction, learned through proximity to authority during servitude. Sleep comes gradually as your mind processes the day's observations, while planning approaches to opportunities that could transform circumstances if pursued with proper preparation and acceptable risk tolerance. The carved cross rests safely hidden, while providing comfort through tangible connection to beliefs that anchor identity. The settlement sleeps around you with sounds of wind through walls and distant ocean waves, creating rhythm that marks time's passage while you contemplate the long journey ahead from thrall to free man in this unforgiving land. The month's survival represents foundation rather than destination, beginning rather than conclusion of advancement, requiring years of careful progress. Your first 30 days end with hard-won knowledge, dangerous opportunities, and fragile hope, carefully preserved despite systematic attempts to break spirit along with body. Tomorrow begins the next phase of survival that could lead toward freedom if courage matches planning and skill proves sufficient for the challenges ahead. Congratulations, survivor. You've endured your first brutal month as a thrall in Viking Age Iceland, learning that freedom isn't given but earned through blood, cunning, and the unbreakable will to climb from the very bottom of a merciless world. From that first cruel kick in the slave quarters to carving your hidden cross by firelight, you've witnessed every rung of the social ladder and discovered what it truly takes to survive when everything familiar is stripped away. You've stolen scraps to stay alive, learned Norse words through necessity, felt the burn of punishment fires, and observed the complete hierarchy from Gunnar, the freed farmer's modest dignity, to Thorvald's skull, Splitter's absolute power. Most importantly, you've heard the spring raid announcement that could transform everything if you're brave enough to risk death for the chance at warrior status. But what happens when you take that leap? What if freedom's price is even higher than slavery's chains? In episode 2, The Farmer's Gamble, you'll discover that escaping thraldom only leads to new terrors as a freed tenant farmer facing impossible rent, failed crops, and the crushing realization that one bad harvest could drag you back into chains worse than death. The volcanic soil betrays your plow, ravens destroy your seedbed, and desperate hunger drives you to eat tomorrow's seed grain today, stealing hope from your own future. Freedom, you'll learn, means choosing which way you want to die. If you enjoyed this journey into the brutal realities of survival, please hit that like button and subscribe for more immersive historical experiences that will challenge everything you think you know about human endurance. Thank you for spending this long night with me, surviving the impossible and discovering the strength that lies hidden within us all. Sweet dreams, and may your own challenges seem lighter after walking in a thrall's shoes.